Righto, welcome to the Shadow of War coverage video I'm gonna do. I'm about 20 or so hours into the game, and I guess that means it's doing pretty good. I've played it a lot the last couple days, and there's been a lot of ups and downs in it, so I wanted to explain my overall thoughts on the game at this point. Now, I've completed one of the main branches in the story. I think there's two more in the story missions, and then I'm pretty sure there's like an end game thing where you have to take even more forts and stuff, so I've taken about 2 forts now, so I've got a little bit of experience in it. I'm working on my third one in Gorgoroth. Is that what it's called? It's the Mount Doomy looking map, so that one's pretty cool. Now, I'm gonna avoid spoilers as much as I can. You already knew about like all the regions in the game, so I think that's kind of okay to talk about, but as far as story goes, I'm not going to spoil anything for you. Not that I really think you would care, because the story in Shadow of War is the worst thing I could ever imagine, ever. I mean, it's okay. It's cinematic, I guess, but every character in the game is so boring, and the first 6 hours of this game are so story-heavy. They don't really let you use the Nemesis system or give you the ability to brand orcs for about, like, the entire first act of the game, basically, and that's a big problem. Now, I realize it was like that in the last game as well. You had to get to the, I think, second area before you could really start branding orcs, like, at all. But at this point, with a game that has so much going on like Shadow of War does, I feel like it needs to introduce this stuff a little bit faster, and I realize they probably did that because they didn't want people to get lost in all the stuff that can go on, so like trying to recruit people and take out fortresses like right away and stuff. But waiting 4 to 6 hours to just be able to get into what I would consider the biggest part of the game and the most fun in the game is probably the worst thing they could have done. They could have introduced it a lot smoother and made it more enjoyable for those of us who really don't like having every single cliche in a storyline be thrown in our face for the first few hours before we get to the really cool stuff, which is the Nemesis system. And yes, the Nemesis system has been upgraded so much since the last one, and it's so much better. Basically, they've just added things to it. I would liken it to XCOM 2 versus XCOM 1, where they've added more stuff to it. They've kept some of the same stuff. There's even some of the same items and voice acting and orc names and stuff that there was in the last game, but there's so much more to it. The orcs all have more traits and more weaknesses and strengths, and they take a lot of different strategies to really take out. You're seeing it right here as I fight this giant behemoth of a man, or of an orc, my mistake, rather. And it's really interesting how different every fight can be. Now, I think that on the higher difficulty is where the Nemesis system really shines when you are playing the regular part of the game, when you're just exploring around the world trying to take over forts and dominate captains and things like that. Playing on the higher difficulty is a better experience, because the thing about Shadow of War is that they've turned dying into sort of its own reward as well. Like, you're not punished if you die. You get upgraded captains and stuff. If one regular orc kills you, he gets promoted to a captain, so you get like missions to go and take him out and stuff like that. So dying isn't really like it is in other games, and it's almost encouraged. And in fact, they say that when you go to the higher difficulty as well. They say, okay, you're gonna die. That's okay. That's part of the game. Now, I guess the problem with that is, even on the higher difficulty, I was never really dying in regular fights all that often. I think I died one time within the first 15 hours or so of the game when I wasn't in a story mission. So, the story missions are generally a lot more difficult sometimes. In fact, I ran into one that I honestly couldn't beat on the high difficulty, but it wasn't necessarily because it was, like, too difficult and my fault I was dying, I felt like. And I think that's a big problem with the difficulty, especially in the story missions. Sometimes you feel like you can't do anything to survive, so what I did was I dropped it down to easy for the story missions, because if you die in those, then it just restarts you, and you don't get the rewards. So what's the point in playing it at a higher difficulty, because I just want to get through the story, so I can go back to doing the parts of the game that I really like. And the best part of the game is obviously the parts where you're running around branding and fighting and having orcs come back from the dead to try to hunt you down. You probably saw my video about Flog the Moaner. I've killed that guy 5 times, and he keeps coming back from the dead. I cut him in half last time, so I'm hoping he's gone for good now, but you never really know. So that's the best part about this game, is when you kill an orc and then they come back and they're all disfigured and scarred up based on how you killed them. They can have, like, their limbs sewed back on. They can have big hand burn marks from where you tried to brand them, and all this different stuff that can happen that makes the game feel at least a little bit different for everyone that plays it. It is a really good water cooler game, but there are a lot of drawbacks to it, unfortunately. And I feel like Shadow of War overall really wants to break out of some of the shackles that are around it, and the shackles are A, the terrible story, and B, the microtransaction and loot system, because in my opinion, the microtransaction system and the loot boxes really do affect the game, and they make it very easy. Now, it's not like you can't get loot boxes if you're playing without spending real money. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. I'm at the point now where I'm swimming in so much Mirian, which is the in-game currency that you use to get silver loot boxes, that I don't know what to do with it. So I started buying a couple loot boxes, and you get these orcs out of them. They pop out, or you get little scrolls that can be used to upgrade the orcs you have in your army, etc. And I've got so many of them, and I've got so many good orcs out of them, that there's no point in me even running around and trying to brand the ones in the world, because I might as well just kill everyone off and then replace them with the orcs that I have in my little Pokeballs in the menu instead. It makes the game a lot easier if you do that. I kind of wouldn't recommend doing that, but at the same time, sometimes it can be very difficult to properly brand orcs and stuff, and it takes a long time to raise an entire army that's able to take out a fort by yourself without using it. It's very oddly balanced. Like, it becomes too easy with the loot boxes, but it feels very grindy if you don't use them. And I'm specifically talking about the ones that you can get with the in-game currency, not the gold currency that you can buy with real money. Now, the ones that you buy with real money, that's kind of a completely different story. So they give you some gold during the game. I got, like, I think 500 or 600 at this point, and I believe the gold loot boxes cost 200 each, so I've unlocked a couple. And they give you way more powerful orcs. You're much more likely to get legendary ones, and it makes the entire game so much easier, and I wouldn't recommend getting them. I don't think there's any point. I think you're eliminating the best parts of Shadow of War if you buy those gold loot boxes, because you're just getting the most powerful orcs right away. And part of the game is raising your army and slowly taking back regions and stuff, so if you don't have to do that anymore, what's the point? I just feel like overall the loot box system could have been done completely differently and had it not look like as big of a game-changing easy mode than it really is right now, you know? It takes all the challenge out of the game, and I'm more tempted to use it because, like, if I don't use it, then I'm making it harder on myself. And I guess that's what the loot boxes are for, right? They want you to buy them. They want you to pay for them. Thankfully, I do believe that if you just want to use the silver ones, then you're probably going to be okay. Granted, I haven't gotten to the end game where they say that loot boxes are pretty much required. But if they mean that they're required by the silver loot boxes, I guess not as bad. But the whole system is weird. It doesn't feel like it fits, and I really feel like the game was probably balanced accordingly. Okay, so other than loot boxes, what is the rest of the game like? It's pretty good. Unfortunately, there are a lot of glitches going on. This gameplay in particular, I ran into quite a few of them randomly, and that started when I hit record on Shadowplay, so I don't know if that somehow caused the pathfinding, the AI, to somehow go weird, but during this gameplay specifically, both my character and some of the AI just seem to be doing very odd things all the time, and I feel like the AI gets very confused quite often, because there's a lot going on. They have to avoid things like fire and poison on the ground and traps, and similar to Divinity Original Sin 2 almost, like when there's so much stuff going on that the AI has to process, and the difference being that this one's moving in real time, it can make it do really weird things. Like I've run into Caragors that just get caught on trees and stuff like that, or enemies that will randomly see me from across the map, like not even the captains that can sometimes track you and stuff, just random enemies like that, and other things like animation glitches and stuff. Talion acts really weird. It's kind of got the Assassin's Creed syndrome, where you'll jump off a ledge and you'll go flying in one direction. Thankfully, you can't take fall damage in this like you can in Assassin's Creed, but I've just gone flying way past where I was trying to go before, or I've missed the ledge completely that I probably should have been able to grab onto. It feels less tight than it did in the last game, and I feel like that's probably due to the open world and the other movement abilities you have. Now, that being said, the movement abilities and everything work really well for the most part when they're not working completely. So, if that makes sense. When you're jumping around off buildings, you can do like a little double jump now that makes you move a lot faster. Usually that works, and you can pretty easily land on things like ropes to get across ledges and things like that too. Talion will stick to those pretty well, but when you have that sticking mechanic, every now and then you, like I said, will run into that problem where you jump in the complete opposite direction, or Talion will go like 100 feet somewhere somehow just by doing like a little jump off a ledge. It's really weird. I do really like the new regions. I think that they have a nice little difference in aesthetic. Obviously, this Cirithungol region is very city-oriented. Now, I remember Monolith talking about, like, oh, there's a foresty region around here, too. I mean, the foresty region is, like, one little path that leads you to one of the forts at the end of the map, so I feel like they kind of over-explained that one a bit. Kind of hyped it up a little bit too much, but the regions are fine. They are roughly the same size as the last ones, maybe a little bit bigger than the ones from the last game, but they function basically the same. You have outposts and stuff that you take out when you go across the map. You can find the war chiefs in there. It's obviously harder to fight in the outposts and stuff. The big difference is that you can disable them this time, so every outpost will have like a leader to it. That's one of the orcs on the map, and then if you take him out, then it disables the alarm system, which makes it easier, I guess. The alarm system was kind of nice, though. I don't know, it can be annoying at times, but I feel like it ramps up the difficulty nicely, so I don't really know that I like that I can disable the entire thing now. And it's kind of required if you want to, like, really take over the region, but I guess that's the whole point of the game, so There's a couple questionable things that they put in like that, so it's kind of weird. I'm really sick of radio towers and finding random things in open worlds. Guys, it's not fun. Developers of every game ever. I don't want to climb a tower, hold down E, and then be told that I have to go and look for other things and find them and hold down the control button. It's not an enjoyable experience. It pads things out, and it slows everything down, takes away from the game, and it's not needed. Why do you need that in this game? Is that the focus of this game? No, the orcs are, so add in more cool things you can do with the orcs instead of running around looking for goddamn spider webs. Oh, I also hate the UI and the loot management, so this game is one of those new ones these days that has a mechanic where instead of pressing a button, you have to hold it down for like 2 seconds before it does anything, and I hate that, because it's not like just tapping the button will do anything else. It does the same thing. You have to hold it down. There's no other reason to have, there's no reason to have it at all. I don't like it. I don't like it when these games have these UIs that are obviously made for consoles, not properly updated for PCs, you know. There's all these random buttons on your keyboard that you have to, like, hit just to do very simple things. Like, if you want to go to the army screen, you hold down the escape button. But that doesn't work if you're in the map screen, so you have to hold down the plus button to zoom in on the map to get to the army, or you have to, like, hold the minus button to zoom out of the map and then out into the overworld. It's all very weird and doesn't make any sense. Like, the keyboard layouts and stuff are so oddly presented to you, and whenever you go from one screen to another, there's like a fade-in effect that takes a little while. It's very not well optimized, especially for the PC crowd, which I feel is a little bit more hardcore. It reminds me of the Mass Effect Andromeda thing, where you would be going in like that hyperspace between planets and stuff, but it would take forever, and you'd have to do it over and over and over and over again. And it was honestly like the worst thing about that game, and it made me stop playing. Not that this one is that bad, but still, I find myself getting slightly annoyed when it takes like half a second to load into the map, and that might sound really nitpicky, but it's like, why can't it just be instantaneous? Wouldn't that be fine? Isn't there a way to do that? I feel like that would be okay. The inventory management and the loot system as well, like I said, the UI isn't extremely well laid out. When you're picking up stuff in the world, there ends up being like stuff that's littered all across the map, little icons and things, and they stay there if you don't pick them up, so you run into the same problem I did in the last game, where eventually I had the gear I wanted, so I didn't pick up any more, and then it fills up, but then those are just, they're all across the map. And then you have to pick them up one by one. You can't pick them up like an MMO system, so it's like, okay, I gotta walk over to pick up this dagger, then go pick up this ring instead. And you end up with all this stuff in your inventory, and then if you don't want any of it, one by one you have to click on it and then hold the 3 button to like disenchant it and give you Mirian, but you have to hold down the 3 button for like 2 seconds every time. And then you have to like exit out of, say, the sword menu, then go into the cloak menu. It's not well laid out at all. I don't understand why we can't have a proper inventory system. That seems like a very easy thing to do. Just give me a giant rectangle with like little square slots in it, and put all my stuff in those slots, and have like a drop-down menu for every type of item. That's all you gotta do. It's not that hard, and I'm really baffled as to why that wasn't added in, because, like, that's PC Gaming 101. Aside from that, the game runs pretty well. I have no real issues with that. I think the game might stutter or lag a couple times in this video. Again, I think Shadow Play is to blame for that, because I haven't had any performance problems really up until the time I started recording here, so I don't really know. Yeah, so overall, like I said earlier, I feel like this game just got bogged down by all these extra systems that are expected out of a AAA title, things like loot boxes and, you know, radio towers, looking around for little things on the wall that you have to use your special little sight vision to see, and stuff like that. It's not needed anymore. I'm sick of it. They have a really cool system with the orcs and the nemesis system and stuff, but then they throw in standard story missions that are, like, the entire branch I've completed, almost every mission was go and rescue Gondorian soldiers, and they're tied up at posts, so you hit the control button, and then you untie them. That was everything. That was the entire storyline. And I don't want that. You have this really cool dynamic stuff going on, and then we get that? No. I'm sick of that. I don't want that anymore. So if you're someone who really doesn't like microtransactions, or you don't like all that open world bullcrap, you might see a lot of problems with this game. And the Nemesis system, I think, could alleviate that for a lot of people, but for others, maybe not. So I would gauge it out, read some reviews, and decide if this is something that you want to pick up now or on sale. And if you don't like the microtransaction system or the loot boxes and you want to boycott it, that's totally fine. I don't really care. I had to cover this one anyways because this was my most anticipated game of the year at one point. And to be honest, that really did change as I learned more about the game. And it sucks because I feel like there's a very solid experience, but I don't think that that will ever be realized, and that's mostly due to WB's insistence on making the most money possible instead of making good video games. So if you play Shadow of War yourself, let me know your thoughts on it, either in the comments on my Discord or let me know on Twitter. If you have any questions about the game, let me know in the comments as well. I am PattyJack. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful day.